morning, YouTube. Tired Metalhead Weatherman here. Hopefully, you guys are doing well. Boy, oh boy, last night was an interesting stream. That's probably why my voice sounds a little bit shot because it was absolutely wild. Had a rain-wrapped tornado over in New Mexico heading towards the Texas border here. Man, it was crazy. It was a beast. Who knows what kind of damage it could have caused if it hit anything. Storm chasers were in the line of fire, however, and I think I heard rumor that a few may have taken a hit from the storm. So far, I have nothing on injuries, but hopefully it remains that way. But that was a pretty significant storm. To anyone who was watching, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But overall, the day itself was pretty active, with even confirmed tornadoes in areas that weren't expecting any sort of risk. Colorado being one of those that had that didn't even have a 2% area, and even Nevada. So, again, it seems like this year's been one of those years where the weather's just decided to do whatever it sees fit and work under the weather community's noses at times. That being said, today is a marginal risk, but it's not to be slept on because there's not even a tornado threat with this today. There's less than 2%. But even so, we need to keep an eye out. Main concerns are going to be wind and hail. And unfortunately, this looks like this is going to be happening over the very same area we were looking at on live stream last night. But we have two areas today, too. We have the Texas-New Mexico border. We have a little bit more of the panhandle of Oklahoma in the action now, too. And we're getting Colorado, even Denver and Pueblo into the action. And then, of course, Montana and parts of North Dakota is in the action as well. Like, again, the wind and hail threat is going to be the big thing, but don't rule out the potential of a tornado. I'd say it's pretty low, but then again, we weren't really supposed to have anything going on either, in Colorado or Nevada, which is nuts. So we go to day 2, and we have 2 slight risk areas, a bimodal event. This time, again, we're going towards parts of Montana and Wyoming now. We're just to the east of Billings and Sheridan here with this northern slight risk, and then the southern slight risk is, guess where? Texas, New Mexico once again. This setup just seems like it doesn't really feel like it wants to move. It seems content staying right where it is. So pretty much all week this area has been a point of interest for severe weather. If anything, I've seen the severe threat kind of move more westward over the last couple of days. But that being said, there is a wind threat with this. Hail seems like the greatest threat, especially with the southern risk at the moment. But there is a 2% tornado threat with this area too. We could see another concentrated area because at the last minute or late in the afternoon, we had an upgrade to an enhanced risk last night, right before the storm started to go off. So, and I do see very similar conditions to what I saw yesterday. So that being said, that's going to be something to keep an eye on. Day 3, as we head towards Saturday, it's another marginal risk. Some chance for an upgrade is possible, especially over towards Nebraska, parts of Colorado. But we're going to have to see how things play out with that. We'll go over this stuff briefly or as quickly as I can, because there's also a chance of tropical development over here towards the southwest Atlantic here off the coast in the next 7 days. So something to definitely keep an eye on as we head into the Memorial Day weekend. This could damper some plans around here towards the southeast. Days 4 through 8, there's only potential and predictability too low, so we're not going to get too far into that. We're just going to bypass that for today. I'm short on time. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and take a look at what the shortwave is. If you don't know what the shortwave is, that is the 700 millibar winds. This was a big culprit in last night's storms, and we're going to see a very similar setup as we head into Friday. Today, the setup isn't quite as impressive. There is something here, but it's not quite set up in the same manner. If we were going to be looking for tornado potential, we would probably see these wind bars pointing more towards the north. And you'd see this little contour line right here facing a little more to the north. It's not quite organized as well. But nonetheless, as we go into Friday, you'll see the difference very quickly. A little bit more organized, a little bit more impressive, and there we go. Very similar to last night's setup. See that wind bar pushing more towards the north here. A little bit more organized of a trough, a little bit more organized of a shortwave that develops here. And it's in these areas to the south where I'm interested in tornadic activity as of right now. Could there be a secondary area that develops over here? Maybe. I'm doubtful. I'm mainly leaning towards hail threat earlier in the day for these regions and the severe weather threat later in the evening to increase here. What this little piece of energy here is doing, I'm not entirely sure yet. I'm going to look into that one more throughout the day, but as of right now, it looks relatively benign. But as we go into Saturday, it's a pretty similar deal. And also what I want you to avert your attention to as we're looking at this is this spot over here towards the southeast, this little circle. That's where that tropical low, that potential for a tropical low exists. It's only a 10% chance, as highlighted by the National Hurricane Center, but nonetheless, as we go through Friday, it starts to tighten up here. And then just before making it on shore to Sunday, like I said, I don't expect this to become any sort of tropical storm or anything. Just not really favorable conditions in the area, not to mention the amount of time it has before it reaches land. I would expect it to reach land around Saturday night, maybe into Sunday. So speaking of Sunday, we're going to go ahead and switch over to the GFS so we can look at the Sunday setup. So here we are looking at the GFS. We're going to sneak through here, and we see a pretty similar deal. Low-level jet's just as impressive on here as it is the NAM here. So although the NAM is has a little bit stronger shortwave further to the north, so that could make things interesting as far as the setup here. Then on Saturday, it's a pretty similar deal. I'll be watching more towards western Nebraska, and maybe towards Kansas, parts of eastern Colorado. And then here's that tropical low coming in. Seen pretty good agreement amongst models for this setup here. We could see increased wind, increased surf. We are likely to, as a matter of fact, across pretty much the entire eastern seaboard. Where the showers and thunderstorms end up being most likely going to be maybe more so towards the backside of the storm. I'm not entirely sure. There should be a front flank as well, but it's not going to be super organized. It's going to be kind of messy. And this is going to be persisting in pretty much through a good part of the weekend, if not all of it. Especially on that right front quadrant here. I think that's going to be the area that would develop first, if any. That being said, when we look at Sunday, and we were me and a couple of the other guys were talking about this setup. Oh no, hang on. We were talking about Sunday setup, and sorry for that disruption, but this little area right here towards North and South Dakota looks relatively interesting. And then there's a little secondary area that looks interesting early in the day on Sunday. So between those two areas, we could see something go off here too. But given as far out as it is, we're getting to let these models develop here or evolve, because once you get to about 80 plus hours out, trying to show soundings is kind of a moot point, and I'm short on time. But that's pretty much what we have going on through a good chunk of the Memorial Day weekend. Looking at the moisture returns, this is another key factor for severe weather development. As far as tonight's setup, we're not really looking at a really strong return here. Even as we get late into the evening, where we would expect that moisture to vect more towards the west, I don't think the moisture gets there in time. And then when we get towards tomorrow, however, or Friday, tomorrow, days are mixed up, we do see a little bit better moisture return over here towards the Texas-New Mexico line once again. So this setup is starting to pan out a lot like last night's based off the look here. And then on Saturday, that moisture does make it a little bit further to the north here. So we would have to watch Kansas, maybe Colorado as well now. Starting to get even into the panhandle of Oklahoma now. And this little second area is starting to develop here. So like I said, something I'm going to be keeping a close eye on over the course of the next couple of days here. So once we get towards Sunday, the moisture return does become a little bit more impressive with the NAM, but that's as far as it'll go. Peak time for severe weather could be in the midday and into the evening, but don't really have a fix on all of the areas. So, of course, like I said, soundings are going to be kind of a moot point right now. If we make our comparison to the GFS, it's going to be pretty identical, I get the feeling. Because I'm actually kind of reacting as I'm going here because I just woke up not too long ago and having to get ready for work. Moisture return with the GFS isn't quite as impressive. The NAM has always been a little bit better than GFS this year as far as picking up on moisture returns. GFS may eventually come on board and show a very similar look within the next couple of runs, but NAM just seems to pick up on it a little bit faster. But that being said, it's a pretty similar deal. Saturday we get a pretty good moisture return even further to the north here, and that's going to create plenty of instability. That shortwave is going to allow for some lift and some kinematics to come into play, and as a result, we will end up seeing an increased chance of severe weather. That being said, let's go ahead and switch over to the NAM here, and we'll look at the instability or CAPE that's available in the atmosphere. This is looking into Thursday night. Very limited CAPE. Again, shortwave isn't impressive. Moisture is just not in the right spot at the right time. But look what happens as we get into Friday afternoon. Much more explosive environment. And then take a look at this area right here. I actually want to take a look at the sounding now. I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm suckered into it a little bit. Significant supercell analogs, significant hail analogs. This is a great look for hail threat. Tornado threat isn't that impressive because I think later into the evening is when that threat would increase, but I think it would be more so towards the south. So this is 03. Still very suitable environment for severe weather, almost 3,000 joules per kilogram CAPE. And boom, there you go. There's a heliograph with a tornado threat on there, and then pretty good significant tornado parameter. Highest I've seen in a little bit here, about a 6. And then also the skew T here looks pretty impressive as well. It's a good lift index. Also really good damaging wind potential. Like I said, almost a carbon copy in some ways to last night's setup. And then also really strong storm relative felicity, over 300 meters squared per second squared. So this could become problematic here. That being said, let's go ahead and move this forward and go into Saturday, see what it looks like. And what do you know? There we go. Very similar look, a little further to the north this time. And then when we go into Sunday, instability does look like it tries to develop a little earlier in the day, but I think the storms will probably fire maybe just a little bit ahead of this instability here. The thing with this is going to be the timing. These storms fire later and that instability builds up over that region. We could have much more intense severe weather. And there is areas over here where we're getting above 1,000 joules per kilogram here. That's about the minimum you would need for severe weather, and maybe even tornadoes. So this is going to be a developing situation, developing forecast on my end as we go later into the week. That being said, though, I'm going to hurry up and get off here because I don't even want to know what time it is. But if you enjoyed the video, if you found it useful, you know what to do. Punch that like button, smash that subscribe button, and obliterate the share button so that way we can get this out to more people. It's going to be a pretty impactful forecast for the Memorial Day weekend. So make sure you're staying tuned to the weather nonetheless. But you'll get a lot more here, I'm sure. That being said, you guys take care. Have a good day. This has been Metalhead Weatherman. I'm signing off for now.